Why do many of us game? Because it's fun, entertaining, an escape, and maybe more. But with it being so fun, there are also a lot of gaming problems. Imagine for a moment it's November 17, 2004, and Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater just came out. As a long-time Metal Gear fan, you rushed to get it, play it, and loved it. An all-time favorite that you are willing to come back to play over and over. And then suddenly, March 14, 2006, and MGS3 is now re-released with all these extra features like Snake vs. Monkey, online mode, improved gameplay, and even a port of 2D Metal Gear 1 and 2 from the MSX, which never even came here before? You, as a longtime fan, had bought the original copy at a full price, but now it feels obsolete. It's not that special anymore, it's the inferior version. Why? Because fucking... Okay, this isn't Castlevania 101, so we'll not do that. This isn't just a Konami problem after all. For some time in gaming, we've been getting these updated versions of games released that make an older version of it obsolete. It's not a sequel, but an update that makes you regret having bought the original in the first place and rather have waited for the better version. A classic example of this was Street Fighter 2, which spawned countless updates. Imagine growing up in that era and you bought the original one with all that hype around it, scourging up allowance just to do it, and then hearing of these newer versions that are coming out. At first, it might not seem so bad, but each version added more and more characters until you ended up going in to trade in your old vanilla copy plus some cash to get the updated Turbo Edition. But then soon after, Capcom lets out Super Street Fighter 2, and now even that one is obsolete too after all. This of course continues all the way to Street Fighter 4, where even in the age of DLC, they were still selling an updated version of Super Street Fighter 4 over its old vanilla version. I suffered that and even made a whole damn video around it back then. But even if there was the occasional updated version, they weren't as common back then. Japan definitely felt it through Square with repeated releases of updated versions of their games, but we'll get to that later in the video. It wasn't until the PS3 360 era when we saw remasters explode and go out of control, both in a good way and a bad way actually. The good way was that numerous games ported from previous generations were ported and upscaled to 1080p and sold again, usually in collections and at a cheaper price too. That doesn't sound too bad when one thinks of the idea of being able to buy a collection of games for a cheap price with updated visuals, right? To someone new to the series, that sounds great in fact. Hell, if you're missing an entry or two with that said collection as well, that sounds like a steal. However, this does bring a problem of its own. For one, many of you have a backlog of games that may even be a generation old, games that you may have picked up from the previous generation just yesterday even. Then, before even being able to play them, an HD collection of that exact game is announced. It's a devastating feeling. You spent all that money to get those games you were planning to get to eventually, and then told, too bad, we made an even better version. You spent the money already, so would feel bad not playing it, but would also feel bad buying the game again. And boy have I felt that hard from games, like buying individual copies of God of War before a mega collection suddenly released that packed all 6 games in one. Now yes, that is nitpicky I will admit, and realistically has taught me to not buy as many games and keep in my backlog for so long. But here's the actual bad that recent booms of remastered games have caused. Well, it's not so much a cause, but what may have caused them. As many of you know, the PS3 at one point had backwards compatibility, and then they got rid of it. This opened the floodgates to re-release old PS2 games, old 128-bit era games on the PS3 because now there was no way to play PS2 games as backward compatibility wasn't a thing anymore. In fact, this continued onto the PS4, where Sony refused to allow backwards compatibility with the PS3 and then started releasing remasters of PS3 games on PS4. Basically, by not including backwards compatibility, it allowed for companies like Sony to re-release these yet again instead of letting you buy the cheaper PS3 and PS2 copy to play on your current console. At least, Microsoft allows you to play 360 games. Now, some of you may not care for remasters cause you have your original PS2 that can play cheaper versions of those re-releases and may even have an upscaler that can bring them into HD. But then, there are those remasters that add real content. Take, for example, the Final Fantasy X and X-2 HD. Over in Japan, the PS2 Final Fantasy X and X-2 got a re-release of them called the International version that added a whole slew of new content. So when those HD remasters came out, it wasn't just a matter of updated visuals, there was a lot of new stuff added for us Westerners. Our original copies were truly outdated and inferior at this point. We just didn't realize it until way down the road. So even if we were just fine playing our original copies, here it actually might sting knowing that you are missing out on a whole slew of new content including boss fights and story elements. Not only is Final Fantasy X responsible for this, but Square also pulled this off with the entire Kingdom Hearts series. You paid hundreds of dollars, thousands even if you include the consoles you had to buy just to play everything from the first game to Dream Drop Distance. But then suddenly, they announced Kingdom Hearts 1.5, 2.5, and 2.8, which does an HD remaster of everything. It doesn't even stop there. You may have bought each of those individual collections, including 1.5 and 2.5. Then you are suddenly told a combined collection is coming out with both games in it at a valued price. Good job! You overspent cause Square announced an even cheaper collection now. You thought it was over then? By just getting that combined collection plus 2.8? Oh no, Square then went one step further and then later announced 1.5, 2.5, and 2.8 in one collection called The Story So Far. Can you believe this? What Square did was repackage the same damn game 3 times. Hell, I won't be surprised if they take it a step further soon and combine it with Kingdom Hearts 3 and just call it the complete collection or something. Basically, what this comes down to is that it's hard to predict if you should buy the very game now to play later or buy it only when you really want to play it in case a cheaper remaster comes out. And the worst part of that being that if it doesn't and you waited, the game might get too rare to buy. It's a matter of who the hell you can trust then, and that changes all the time in the game industry. However, with the release of remasters as well, it has become so common now, as such remakes are becoming less and less available. Remakes used to be a thing you used to see more often to greatly update old visuals and even gameplay, and that was fantastic! Now it's just ports with higher resolutions to make a quick buck for a company because they get both new and old fans who just want a newer version of that game. Even if one just wants to update their game, when is the next update? Because I won't be surprised if on the PS5 and Xbox 2, we see 4K remasters all of a sudden. Now, not only is your original version obsolete, but so is your HD copy, as you are now triple dipping. And then what? If 8K one day becomes viable, you gonna quadruple dip into getting that too? Now, I'm not saying remasters are bad. As stated earlier, they are amazing in fact for the value that you get. However, considering how often they come out nowadays, it is evident that companies are more interested to make a big profit of selling old games at a higher price than it should be worth at that point, especially those who don't even offer newer versions of that modern generation game as DLC. Therefore, the best solution to avoid feeling the sting of your original copy being obsolete is to ask yourself a few questions. Are you going to play this now or not for some time? Because if now, you can at least beat it and have experienced it well so that if it is remasters, you might not care because you already beat it. What is the base game anyways? The extra content wouldn't add that much and you could then just move on. The next question is this company notorious for remastering games? Like if it's Capcom with Street Fighter, maybe hold off until a more complete version is out. But usually you can get updates via DLC anyways nowadays. And last but not least, is getting the remaster of this game worth it if I own the original? Which, if it is indeed appealing to you because it has a bunch of new additions you like, I suggest to get them on PC if they are available. The reason is because you already have it physical, so you may as well just get it as a digital version, so you can play it with mods and even update the visuals to 4K if they do decide to release it later as an update. In other words, it actually feels new enough at that point that it won't sting, and you got yourself your original's copy still too that you can sit back on your couch and play. Hey everyone, thank you for watching The Obsessive Gamer. Gaming problems. And this was our remaster episode. I hope it wasn't too nitpicky for some of you guys. I'm not saying I hate remasters, but yeah, there's problems with it too. So why don't you subscribe and like, for we'll have another video in 2 weeks. And thank you for watching.